This week on Full Credit to the Noise, the GTs hit the bend. F1 backtracks again on their engine regulations. And could Max and Oscar do a straight swap? Welcome to Full Credit to the Noise. Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Full Credit to the Noise. You can find this podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at FCTTN Podcast. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Facebook at former_legend. You can find the bloke across me on Twitter at AVL_motorsport. He's on Instagram at AVL.motorsport. He's the man here this week, matched with an ISIS bride on Bomble. He's been asked people to stop calling him Prince Andrew Van Leeuwen on social media, and tonight, he's wearing Kylie Minogue's famous gold hot pants. Welcome to Speak Cafe's Andrew Van Leeuwen.
Hello, Former. I hate to think what our producer Grant is going to do with any of those prompts in ChatGPT, but yeah. Anyway, I'm going to try not to think about it. Let's put it that way. How are you, mate? What's going on?
Yeah, look, a bit going on, but I sort of stuck my head in to look at the GTs around the bend on the weekend. Mm-hmm. Some decent racing in some of the categories. The Mustang races had some highlights. The GTs, you know, and I'm a GT advocate and devotee, but we really need some bigger grids. It's just not great. You know, just another 5, 6, 7 cars would be tremendous in my mind. And they are around Australia. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I don't really know what the answer is. I guess, you know, effectively it is a formula that's sort of propped up by the AM drivers. Mm. And I don't know too many people that are sitting around at the moment going, geez, I've just got way too much money. I just don't really know what to do with it. Like I just went to the survey and it was the cheapest thing I've ever done in my life. So... yeah, you kind of do, you know, you ride the waves of the local economy with these, you know, customer-funded categories. That's sort of just the reality of it.
Yeah, well, on Saturday, as I said, I had a look, and Brendan Leach and Sergio Perez, what a name, they grabbed the opening.
It's amazing.
Opening race on Saturday, in their Merc. They led from lights to flag, AVL. Leach led home Thomas Randall and Mark Rosser in the Audi and gave Perez his first GT World Challenge victory, with Evans and Chute hanging on to third in their Ferrari. On Sunday, Paul Lucchetti held off a late charge by Brad Schumacher, two amateurs, to take victory. He had Jaden Ojeda alongside him. He led home the Audi of Schumacher and Brock Feeney, and Thomas Randall and Mark Rosser again worked their way into third. But I should say congratulations to Jared Hughes and Summer Rintoul, who took their first GT4 Australia win. And in turn, Summer became the first woman to win outright in GT4 Australia, which is a good story.
It is a great story. And GT4 is just kind of a really nice, through all the doom and gloom, it's a nice kind of success story, right? Like they are big grids. They got a lot of drivers out there. There's not manufacturer support, so to speak, because it is still customer racing, but it does seem to be a formula that after a long time of trying has kind of hit the mark.
Yeah. Despite you and I both turning a blind eye to it for probably the best part of 2.5 years. So
yeah, but it kind of never went, you know, it goes back to like 2017, 2018 when they tried to really push this thing. Yeah. And it just couldn't get any traction. And it just, now it really has. And that's a good thing. And it probably does make it tough on your likes of the Mustang Cup because you sort of, I know they technically fit into different parts of the ladder, but there is only so much money that can be spent on this sport, you know, and the way you slice that pie up, GT4 is definitely below that Supercars level, you know, soaking up a fair bit of the pie at the moment.
And a wide variety of cars too, which is, you know, whatever you follow, that's always good to see heaps and heaps of different types of cars out there. So, yeah, and so as we said, well done to Summer. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not a bad afternoon out, or even just behind the screen watching it, because at the moment she's slim pickings otherwise, as we just talked about off air. All right, let's go to the shift cut, because there is a few stories blowing around, especially in Formula 1.
4, 3, 1.
And according to Autosport, several sources have confirmed that Oscar Piastri is Red Bull's plan B in case Max Verstappen leaves the F1 team. Principal Laurent Mekies and Oliver Mitzlaff. Don't forget AVL, it's nearly tax time, so book in to see Mekies and Litzlaff for all your tax needs. They're ready to move forward with the Piastri plan and the unlikely yet plausible scenario of Verstappen suddenly switching to another outfit, taking a sabbatical, or leaving F1 altogether. Now, despite Piastri being under contract through 27, history has shown that F1 contracts rarely are insurmountable obstacles once a driver's intent to leave becomes clear. It's been suggested there could be a driver swap with Piastri heading to Red Bull and Verstappen switching to McLaren. One question out of this, AVL, why would Oscar want to do that?
I guess that, like, this is fairly reputable reporting, so I do believe there's something to it, and it would probably make sense that if you were a team that felt like that it was at risk of needing to find its proven race-winning caliber Grand Prix driver at the moment, that... I think that Oscar would kind of be fairly close to the top of the list, only because not just for the fact that he can obviously win Grand Prix. We've seen him do that. We've seen him challenge for a world championship, but you'd probably have half a case to go to them and say, right, like, come and make this your team. Like, you came into Lando's team and you've played the disruptor role really effectively. But, you know, if you want to remove all the question marks about whether you are the number one driver or not, or whether, you know, you just want to come in somewhere and build something around yourself, here's your opportunity to do that. So you're right as to whether he would want to do that or not. That is a very interesting question, because let's see what kind of happens as we mature a bit with the current regulations and where that Red Bull powertrain's powertrain effectively sits, because we do know now that it is definitely a powertrain formula. Like the aero and the chassis are important. They are always important, but we kind of got to the end of the last set of regulations and it was all about aero. Like, that's all that really mattered. Whereas now it does seem that being able to best manage the energy deployment and the way that the powertrain works is incredibly important here. So let's see how that evolves a little bit. That will probably kind of spell out whether it would be a good move for Oscar if it is indeed on the table. The other thing is that it all really it's all hanging in the balance of what Max decides to do, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's really up to him as to whether he wants to continue, because he just has so much power in Formula One. Like, he can dictate the entire driver market and all this sort of stuff. Like, it's quite incredible, really, that, you know, the one man can sit there and be like, oh, I might just quit, I might move to another team, I might just, like, keep racing, whatever. And the whole market kind of just has to hang around that and sort of decide what they do based on what this guy decides to do.
Yeah, to the point where you say Max is a powerful guy, I would suggest that this next story has a little bit to do with him, because World Motorsport's governing body has announced further changes to the Formula One regulations that will shift the 50-50 electric/ICU power split. Though the new for 26 cars have proved popular aesthetically with their smaller profile, power delivery has been the bone of contention. In principle, it was agreed that there would be less reliance on battery power and more on internal combustion. Fuel flow will be increased to the tune of 50 kilowatts, while battery power will be reduced by the same amount. Due to potential hardware changes, the changes will not come into effect until 2027, which is interesting given that Stefano Domenicali trumpeted with great success this new formula last week or the week before, and said that basically we won't be changing and everything's great. And the number of spectators who bought tickets, last year, they are testament to how popular this new series is.
Yeah, it's a fascinating scenario for all of the reasons that you just kind of listed there. This is a good move. Like, it's a positive thing.
It is.
Obviously, they can't, we know that there's this push towards the going back to minimal electrification of V8 engines in 2030 or 2031. But in the short term, we got to try and make what we have work. And this is a really positive kind of step towards doing that, which is a good thing. It does definitely fly in the face of Domenicali's comments that, there's no issues here and that people don't care about the technicalities of the category and all that sort of stuff. Clearly they do. But, I think this will be met with a fairly positive kind of outlook from everyone involved. There's probably the power unit manufacturers will be going, man, we really spent a lot of money kind of getting to what we've built here. But to some extent, they're kind of the issue as well, because this was all, these regulations were built around trying to make sure that Audi would commit and come into Formula One, and that the existing manufacturers were happy to continue to invest in the category. And it just hasn't worked. So at least they're doing something about it. And hopefully all this stuff goes through and we kind of see, I think we'll still see some little tweaks in terms of the energy management between now and the end of this season. But this is a good, proactive sort of front foot stance on the fact that, okay, even though, again, Domenicali's been out there saying there's no issues, we recognise there is an issue. We recognise that this doesn't work, and here's what we're doing to try and fix it.
It's funny you talk about Audi and trying to please them. Still haven't seen them up the front, so what does it matter?
Well, I guess what it mattered is how they justify the spend, right, to their board, or however they go about their... Because it's a marketing spend to a large extent. So it's all about... And that has been a big question and topic around the FIA. Like, we've seen the FIA come out and say, maybe it's time to just not be dictated to by manufacturers about how we go about this business, because we kind of followed down this electrification path and it hasn't worked for us. So let's maybe do something different. And ultimately, and you look at, there are heaps of examples out there. V8 Supercars is one of them. Sprint car racing is another one. Whatever. Like, create a really entertaining product, and manufacturers will want to be involved, whether they actually are selling that technology or not, because it'll just be a good look for them as a company that makes cars to go car racing in a globally popular series. So I think there's some positive sort of murmurings out of the powers that be in terms of saying, right, okay, cool, let's think about this a bit more holistically and less about what, you, car manufacturer A, needs to want to get involved in this. Let's just build something that people want to come to.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. More than a month after images surfaced of Max Verstappen behind the wheel of a Super GT machine, Red Bull have revealed what went down at a sodden Fuji Speedway. The four-time F1 champion headed to Japan for a Red Bull Motorsports challenge that saw him jump behind the wheel of a Nissan Z Nismo GT500 on a wet track, as you were saying to me before we started recording, wetter than the first two rows of a Harry Styles concert. An attempt to beat the benchmark lap time set by leading Super GT driver Atsushi Miyake. I mean, apparently he went out, blew him away by 2 seconds. That's got to be disappointing. Some bloke lobs on a rainy day and beats your best time by 2 seconds, AVL.
There was some clapback from one of the Super GT drivers or somebody. I'm sort of failing to remember exactly who it was, who actually sort of came out and said, look, when conditions are changing that much, it's unfair the way this has kind of been presented. Which, again, not knowing intimately exactly how it played out and who got the best of the conditions, it's impossible to kind of judge that, but it was an interesting take. But you would think that, someone of Max's caliber would hop in a Super GT car, remembering that he's done a heap of GT racing, right?
Yep.
Like, he's used to this style of car. It's not that foreign to him. They're obviously a bit quicker than a GT3 car, but I don't think that's really going to worry Max. So I don't find it massively surprising that he would jump in a paddle shift, high aero car and do a fantastic job, potentially better than the guy that races it regularly, because he kind of gets the way it works and he's Max Verstappen. So I think, if you rocked up at, I don't know, anywhere, at Queensland Raceway in a supercar and put Max in a supercar, he would do a very good job. Would he beat Brock Feeney by 2 seconds? I doubt it, because the cars, suddenly you're dealing with things like heel and toe, the stick shift, even if it's sequential and all that sort of stuff. Like, that would be a really sort of difficult assignment for Max. But to put him in a car with left foot braking and paddle shift and a lot of downforce and say, go drive around this racetrack, yeah, he's probably going to smoke it, because that's just like what he does.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. FIA president and Formula One driver's hairdresser Mohammed Ben Sulayem revealed that Turkey was among the contingency options being considered should Bahrain or Saudi Arabia remain unable to be rescheduled because of the ongoing regional conflict. F1 abandoned its Middle East doubleheader earlier this year amid war in the region and attacks by neighbouring Iran, with several scenarios now under discussion for the remainder of the 26 calendar. A joint statement from the F1 and FIA noted that Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix will not take place in April, leaving the door open for those races to be rescheduled. Among the possibilities being explored are moving Bahrain or Saudi Arabia into the October 2-4 gap between Azerbaijan and Singapore, or extending the season by an extra week and concluding the championship on December 13. But if those races can't be recovered, Turkey could emerge as a fallback option despite only recently securing a return to the calendar from 27 on a 5-year deal through to 31. I mean, it's not a bad outcome, let's be honest. Good track. Why not do it?
Yeah, no, it would be a decent outcome. I just can't see those races that we've lost being replaced. Like, the schedule is just so out of control already. So I just find that really hard to believe that they'll try and plug something in. But obviously, we have this ongoing question mark about what's going to happen with the Middle Eastern doubleheader to finish the season.
Yeah.
So I think that's really where attention should be. Like, what do we do if we can't have the Abu Dhabi, season finale? What do we do? What do we do
Adelaide.
with that? Like, there you go. That'd be great. You could have the Triple Crown. You could have Supercars and MotoGP and Formula One. One weekend. How good would that be?
And Speedway.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Or even over 2 weeks. That'd be amazing. Supercars communications boss Matthew Carmichael is set to depart the company after just 6 months in the role. He joined Supercars last November from the 7 network. He was one of 2 ex-7 appointments made by then Supercars CEO and former 7 chief James Warburton. Obviously, James has left, so now Carmichael is on his way out the door as well. Supercars chief marketing officer Charlotte Volante told staff in a note on Thursday that Carmichael has made the considered decision to step away effective from June 4. Supercars interim CEO Barclay Nettlefold hasn't spoken about Carmichael's departure, but is said to be considering Mark Scaife or Neil Crompton for the vacant position.
I don't think that's the case.
We
spoke about this in a fair bit of detail on the news pod towards the end of last week, but one of those inevitable sort of things in terms of, you have a new CEO come in, they bring staff with them. Some of that works, some of it doesn't, but if you have this kind of, unusual case where the CEO then departs very quickly, then the people that have come in under that CEO are going to be at risk. Like, that's just how the
Pretty
business
standard
world works. So only 6 months in for Matthew. He was, as you mentioned, he came off the back of a 23-year career as a journo, so he was great for us. Like, he understood journalism. Like, he's not a career comms guy, he's a career journalist. So it's a little bit sad from our perspective in terms of, him being the conduit to how we kind of deal with Supercars itself, because he really understood what we did. But it's such a wide-ranging role that also includes, like, how do we, try and tackle the footy codes and try and go up against them and steal some, 6 p.m. news airtime or some column inches in the big newspapers and the big mastheads away from them. So it's a very difficult role with very high expectations, but overall, kind of, like I say, from a selfish perspective, a little disappointing because Matthew was fantastic at kind of giving us what we needed to do to be journos.
Now, this one's closer to your place. A Nationals MP was kicked out of West Australia Parliament and suspended for 2 days during a fiery debate about the proposed Perth Park racetrack on Wednesday last week. Liberal opposition leader Basil Zemplis raised the topic of the $217 million Burswood master plan during question time. He kept pressing Roger Cook, the Premier, as to whether their budget will include a full and transparent costing of the Burswood racetrack. Cook declined to answer the question directly, instead referring to the release of the budget. Amongst the ruckus, Premier Cook claimed no fewer than 14 times that the opposition hates motorsport and its enthusiasts. He said, I know that the leader of the opposition hates motorsport. He hates motorsport enthusiasts. Western Australians everywhere love motorsport. I love motorsport. I have the Perth Motorplex in my electorate, which is a great facility. Now, despite Zemplis being a massive opponent to the street race, expecting to be the first bloke through the gates and into the Channel 7 corporate box when the race kicks off in 2028.
I would definitely think that would be the case. Yeah, that was another topic that we spoke about on the news pod at the end of last week, so I won't go into too much.
No.
I won't go over it too much, but yeah, just the politicking continues over this thing that should kind of really be a bit of a no-brainer. Like money has to be spent on what could be classed as tourism. This whole thing around the casino-owned land, like, yes, there needs to be some transparency around that, absolutely no doubt. But the idea that Crown Casino are going to be like, oh, we don't really want this massive like event function precinct built on our doorstep is ludicrous. So
Yes.
It does feel a bit like straw clutching from the opposition. And yeah, anyway, look, let's just see how it all plays out. But it was, I mentioned this on the pod on Friday, and I'll say it again. It was very interesting that Roger Cook actually lent into the motorsport angle of this time around, instead of kind of what has been the defence to it, which is that, it's not about car racing. It's about building this precinct, which is actually, again, like, it is what they are doing. That is actually the truth of it. But the fact that he kind of spotted the gap that was, all right, well, let's just point out the fact that there are lots of people that like motorsport in Western Australia and in every other state of Australia. So he just lent into that, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it feels like motorsport's a very easy political football to kick around whenever they need to.
Well, when there's a fuel crisis going on as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, there's
I know
all
that.
these sort of things. Like, you're right, it's low-hanging fruit. You know, it's low-hanging fruit. But so the fact that the Premier kind of lent back into it, I thought was, that's what made that so interesting.
Let's talk about MotoGP. The sprint race on Saturday, I don't know whether you saw this, Jorge Martin started in 8th, and within 750 metres of the race was in the lead. Unbelievable start from the third row. He stayed there to grab the win. Marquez crashed out heavily. He broke his foot. After the race, Marquez said the broken foot was good timing because he was going in for surgery on his shoulder this week anyway. These blokes are just built different, let's be honest.
It's nuts.
That is just insane. In the Grand Prix on Sunday, Jorge Martin again hunted down Aprilia teammate Marco Bezzecchi to win the race in France, to close within 1 point of the MotoGP title lead. It was an all Aprilia podium with I Agura on the Trackhouse Aprilia running third. Moto2, Senna Agius grabbed 7th in a shortened race where there was a lot of falls after he won the previous 2 races. And in Moto3, Joel Kelso started from 3rd and was going well, probably the best so far this year that he's gone, but he fell while pushing at the front, which was a shame. In Kiwis and Aussies overseas, IndyCar. In the IndyCar road course race won by Christian Lundgaard, Scotty Dixon got caught up in a turn 1 stack. They were saying that his car was on fire. I don't know if you saw this, AVL, but somehow he came from the back of the field to finish 6th. It was an unbelievable comeback. Marcus Armstrong grabbed 11th and then was going to get punched in the face by Grosjean after the race. Will Power had a lacklustre 13th, and while his 2 Penske teammates finished 2nd and 4th, Scotty McLaughlin had an early collision that's seen bits fall off his car for the next 10 laps, and he fell over the line in 16th place. In NASCAR, Shane Van Gisbergen clashed with his teammate Sarah Connor and then had a slow final pit stop to run 8th in the Watkins Glen round of the NASCAR O'Reilly's Auto Parts Series in the Ceasefire Bombings 250. And then Connor went on to win the race, I should say. What's his name? Kola Zilic. Van Gisbergen then clinched pole by 0.2 of a second in the Who Else Loves Their Cousin 250 in the main game, and then it was at his vintage best. He put on a classic comeback to win from a thriller. He completed a green flag pit stop in stage 3 before reeling in the race leaders, cutting a 29-second deficit in 17 laps to win the race. In the Monster Energy AMA...
Come on, format. Like, give us what we all want to hear. Move us on to what we want to hear.
No good. The MILF Hunter Lawrence, was within the lead and the title before he dropped it and watched title contender Ken Roxon go on to win the race and the title.
I thought we were going for Roxon.
Well,
that's pivoted.
It wasn't
a
a bad
pivot.
It wasn't a bad. No, I'm not ever going to cheer against an Aussie.
Fair enough.
It was disappointment for the MILF and Aussie fans, but you got to actually have to hand it to Roxon. We covered off on him a couple of weeks ago. He came from the middle of the field 6 rounds ago to collect wins, seal his first ever title. Have a look into him if you're not sure of his history. He has come back from almost losing his arm to do this, so you've really got to hand it to him. It's not a factory bike, it's not a factory effort. For him to win that title is extraordinary. And finally in WRC, Harry Bates from Australia flew over to compete in the Portugal Rally. He showed some pace on Thursday and Friday stages. Although he had 3 punctures on Friday alone, he battled through for a decent day's work on that day. Saturday, he had an off at SS15, did suspension damage, the car was repaired on Sunday, and he went on to finish 20th overall in WRC2. That's about it as far as overseas is concerned for the Aussies. We'll come back after a break with some unders or overs.
Winter could spell bad news for your vehicle's battery. Here are 3 maintenance tips from the battery gurus at R&J Batteries. 1. Avoid frequent short trips to keep your battery at a healthy state of charge. 2. Keep the battery terminals clean and corrosion-free. 3. Avoid running your accessories with the engine off for too long. If your battery is 3 years or older, it might be time to get it tested for free at your local R&J Batteries. R&J Batteries. Power like nothing else.
All right, welcome back. Now, for this, obviously we play this a little bit. Unders or overs. I'm going to make a statement. You just tell me the number I give you, whether it is under or over, what your assessment would be for it. Let's start with this. Under or over 1.5 more seasons in Supercars for Thomas Randall?
Over. Yeah, it's an easy over.
Yeah, I'll say over. Under or over 1.5 more seasons Supercars for Macaulay Jones?
I'd still go over, I think. I think there's kind of I don't know, his place in Supercars is reasonably secure. Obviously, there's a family connection with the team, but it would really depend on, commercialising the whole thing. And you know, that's something that Macca does work hard at as well. So I would think that he would be around for the medium haul at least. So I wouldn't imagine he's going to disappear in the next season.
Yeah, I'll back overs as well. Under or over 11.5, the number of rounds Cameron Waters has left with Tickford.
So that's basically saying that he'd be out at the end of this year.
Correct.
Right? Over for sure. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Under or over?
Where's he going? What's happening? What's your theory?
I think we'll get to that in. Here's a tease. It's what's called a hook and a tease, AVL. We'll talk about it more in credit or shred it in the next segment.
All right.
Under or over 0.5 driver changes in Supercars before the end of 26.
Before the end. So not silly season, as in an actual change to the
before
grid.
Adelaide.
I'll go with under.
I don't know why I put that in there. I feel like I heard something this week. I'll say under, just in case. Under or over?
There was some speculation about Dave Reynolds' plays at Team 18, but I don't know there's too much to it, at least right at the moment.
There was something else happening too from someone else. But anyway, we'll get to that. Under or over 15.5 rounds are the right number for a Supercar season.
Well, definitely over, because you could go over a fair weight, and that would still be right. You know,
I agree.
Yeah, definitely over.
Yeah, especially if you want to compete with those big sports. Under or over 2.5 commentators is the right number in the box for a Supercars race.
Ooh, I'll go over, but I think it depends on the race. I think the actual format that Supercars Media has come up with for the commentary this year, which is for your shorter races, having your 2 callers, which is one of the rotating 3 of Matt Noldy, Richard Craill, and Chad Nalon, and then alongside Garth Tander, but then bringing in that third voice for the longer races, whether it's the sort of Sunday race on a Super 440, or we'll see more of that during the Enduros, although exactly how they're going to manage that when half of the commentary team is going to be racing in the Enduros will be pretty interesting to see. But yeah, I think that kind of works. So I'll say over, because I don't want to say it should always be 2, and that's how it always was, because that third voice in those longer races already this year has really provided some fantastic value. So I think it depends on the race, but overs.
Yeah, I'm going to say overs as well. I think 3 is the number. Under or over 25.5 times the Longford pub will be mentioned during the Supercars broadcast at Tasmania over 3 days.
This is an interesting one, because it'll always get mentioned a lot, and it's probably overs just because it is
correct.
A genuine and pretty
I think you're going to go the same way I'm going to go.
Yeah, pretty amazing part of Tasmanian motorsport history, but not being able to drag Will Davison out there
correct.
And do this, I think will change the model a little bit, because it was just fish in a barrel, right? That when you've
Yeah.
got a Davison in the field and you've got this amazing story of the Longford pub, like it was perfect. And it was well utilised. We actually went to a press call, and I'll never complain about a press call at a pub. I'll tell you that right now. Like that's a
call.
great outcome from where I'm sitting. But we did go there last year, and we ended up for some. I can't actually remember the exact details, but like Davo's such a nerd for the history of motorsport and of his family's involvement in motorsport, as you would be if you did have that kind of rich lineage in the sport. And we somehow ended up like down the road from the pub where he'd gone looking for some sort of roadside marker or something that was involved in something that had happened back in the day, whether it was Lex's famous crash or whether it was something else. And he kind of just took off, and we were leaving at the same time or something, and just sort of went with him. And we ended up in this bizarre sort of treasure hunt on the side of a road in Longford in Tasmania with Will Davison. And he was so enthusiastic about it. And you kind of go, how cool's that? Like, he's just so invested in the history of the sport and in his family's history in the sport that he was literally just, like, the press call was done. Like, it was all over. He could have just got back in the car and gone back to wherever he was staying and carried on with his life. But he was there and he was just excited to be there. So I know it cops a bit of flack, the whole Longford thing, for the amount of airtime it does get during that round. But when you're actually there with a Davison standing on the side of the road, sort of clawing through the bush looking for something, it was pretty cool. Like, it was a pretty fun thing. Like, Steph and I sort of got back in the car and went, no, that was unreal.
Just going back on what you said there, did Lex crash there, did he? Oh.
Yeah, I believe so. I think he ordered a glass of sherry.
There are technically 18 more GPs left in the season, give or take a couple of bombings. We've had 2 different winners. Under or over 4.5 different winners in total by year's end.
My gut feel is under.
Yeah, same, actually.
Yeah, my gut feels under.
Maybe 4.
I reckon 4. I reckon a Ferrari driver's going to win.
Do you?
And a McLaren driver's going to win. And I don't really see much outside of that.
Yeah. Under or over 2.5, the number of heart attacks AVL's young'un is going to give her mother per dirt cart race.
Oh, God. That was a wild start.
Do you want to tell the story?
It was a wild start to... let's just say that my daughter Billy, she competed in her first dirt trackers go-kart meeting on the weekend, and she cut a flick spin in front of the field that would make Brock Feeney blush. Let's put it that way. To the point where she did get a bit of a talking to after her first. She's 5 years old, by the way.
But in her defence, she didn't crash anyone after the checkered flag, so there's that.
No. Well, yeah. No, she does have that up her sleeve. But it was a very fun day at the track, and it was interesting. She's definitely a wild one. So watch this space
fun.
on that one.
It looks fun, man. All right, we'll go to a break and we'll come back with Rear of Grid. And as I said, we'll come back to the possible change in the field. All right, welcome back to Rear of Grid. I haven't been in the Discord much this week, AVL. I've had a fair bit on, I'm not going to lie. But what's been the highlights this week in the discussion amongst the punters?
Actually, probably the best selling point is there's video of this flick spin that I'm talking about from the go-kart track in the Discord. So if you want that sort of access, you got to jump in there because it was captured on film and is there in all its glory. But there's always plenty going on, even on the quieter weekends. I was a little bit. It's probably over the weekend. I had a bit going on, but it's fun to get home from a long day and just sit back and catch up with what everyone's saying.
And I know Marquez was brought up a lot, but we'll touch on him in a minute. But if you want to join, FCTTN.com, follow the links from there and join in the fun and grab a membership. All right, 6 credit or shred it. So I'll make a statement. You tell me if you agree or disagree with the credit or a shred it. We'll come back after we're done. Number 1, Matt Payne will not be in a Ford in 2028.
Credit.
Number 2, Stefano Domenicali lost all credibility after his declarations that everything in F1 was great only a week ago, only for there to be a major change 7 days later.
I'll say shred it, but with a but.
Yeah, I don't think all credibility, but...
a lot of it.
credit, I'll say, just for the sake of it. Number 3, Only an Indy 500 win for Scotty McLaughlin can make 2026 palatable at this stage.
For him, as in terms of like if it's a good season?
Yep.
I'll say shred it for reasons that I'll explain in a moment.
I'll say credit. Number 4, the best available co-driver for any Supercars opportunities in 2026 is in the commentary box.
The best available co-driver for any... yeah.
Credit.
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, okay. Credit.
Number 5, after another monster crash and a broken foot, Marc Marquez should retire now.
Oh... I mean, yeah, I guess credit. Like every MotoGP rider should always retire all the time.
I'll say shred it, but I'll come back to that. In Australia, number 6, there was a near 30% drop in private sales of four-wheel drive utes between March 25 and March 26. While they do have a use, finally people are realising that they suck as a daily driver.
Yeah, I'll go credit.
Credit. All right, let's go back. Matt Payne will not be in a Ford in 28. I still get the feeling he mightn't even be in a Ford in 27. That was my...
Well, they're the options, right? Like
Yep.
he's not in a Ford in 2027 or he's not in a Ford in 2028. But either way, in this case, you know, the way the winds are blowing, he won't be in one in 2028, regardless of what happens. So.
Madness. But also, tremendously interesting.
Yep.
Domenicali lost all credibility. I mean, come on. You don't piss on my back and tell me it's fucking raining. Ooh,
Yeah, no, I guess it depends what lens you're looking through to make that statement. Like, it's kind of one of those things where, like, if you're in charge of the commercial side of Formula One, it would be tough to sit there and say, oh, this thing sucks because it's going great. So it was obviously more to it than just the engineering side and the pure racing side and all that to what he was saying. But there's no doubt that the messaging of coming out and saying everything's fine, we've absolutely nailed this, and then announcing firstly like a rule change for Miami and then this fundamental rule shift for 2027, all the while why the president of the FIA is out there saying, yeah, we're going to absolutely bin these motors as fast as we can and put V8s in the car. None of it adds up. Like it's not even mixed messaging. It's just backwards messaging, you know, it's like, so yeah, that has definitely, if you're going to come out and say that everything's great, you need to do better than kind of what's played out afterwards. At the same time, everything that has kind of happened has been a positive thing. So it's hard to argue against it.
Yeah. I don't know whether you've seen this thing with Ben Salam and his fascination with Formula One drivers' hair. Have you noticed this? He rubs his hand through a bunch of blokes' hair. What's doing?
Yep. It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. Yep. I totally agree with you. Super weird.
I'm sure. Yeah, anyway, I'm sure there's an OnlyFans channel for all that sort of stuff. But anyway, Indy 500 win for Scotty can make 26 palatable.
Pretty early to make that call. That's all that will fix it. I'm sure that would make it pretty palatable.
Yeah.
But pretty early to say that's all that could fix it, right?
Yeah. I feel like the weekend. I mean, I know he got hit early and then he started losing aero from all parts of his car, but it's not been great. Every week seems to be something or other at the moment. And on the weekend, Malukas went like a scalded cat, nearly won the race. So, and Newgarden ran fourth. So it's yeah. I'm not saying he's in trouble. It's definitely not. But geez, it's been a pretty lean year so far by his standards, and he did set lofty standards, especially 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The best available co-driver is in the commentary box. Well, Garth, obviously.
Yeah, like he'll always be a good option. I think I went credit on that. I'm struggling to remember, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're going to present Garth Tander as whether he would be a good co-driver option, I reckon for the next couple of years, he, even though he's not racing regularly, still pretty handy bloke to stick behind the wheel.
Marc Marquez should retire. I said shred it only because he's just as likely to have a couple of months off, come back next year and win the title again. That's just what he does.
I only went credit because, like, everyone should retire from racing 350 kilometre an hour two-wheel death machines all the time. Like, it just seems so ridiculously dangerous. And obviously Mark does know how to have a good shunt as well.
Oh.
But, yeah, you would hope this is not the end of the story, right? You'd hope that there's
No.
another sort of chapter to the Mark Marquez thing. And he has, it wasn't that long ago, everyone was writing him off about the fact that, he shouldn't be in the sport. And look at what he's done, sort of going to Ducati and turning all that around. So,
Yeah.
I do doubt that this will be the end of it for some reason. Whether
same.
I'm right or wrong, I doubt it.
I don't think so either. He's definitely not making any noises like this is enough. And let's face it, he rode that Honda for probably the last 2 years of his Honda time, and he had more get-offs than a Rodeo rider in the end, and still came back. So if he could hang on and come back from that, then this should be a snap. Utes in Australia are suck as daily drivers.
Yeah, I'm trusting your stats on this. I haven't backed up the research.
Our friend Dave McCowan reported it. So
okay. No, I do trust Dave. No offense to you, Foreman, but I definitely trust Dave. It is a thing. People do love to think that whether you buy a Land Cruiser or a Hilux won't make a difference, but they definitely drive pretty differently.
Mate, as someone who regularly drives in the middle of Sydney, trying to find a space for these big bastards, I tell you, it's hard going. So yeah, I think there might be a bit of a wake up call. As much as it's great to have a Ute, don't get me wrong, I've had a few of them. So
yeah.
All right. Now, I'm sorry to someone, whoever wrote this letter for the letter of the week, because I can't find their name for the life of me. But basically, they asked that everyone ragged on TCR for poor grids, and yet it seems Mustang Cup and a couple of other series for that matter seem to get free passes from the media. Why is that?
I'm guessing the question didn't come from Cam Kirby at Ford, to be honest. I don't think he would have brought this up. No, there's definitely no free passes. And you got to remember that when TCR started, it was obviously underpinned by, that GRM and that Boyd money. So the grids were massive. So TCR just floated through particularly the first year. Obviously, then COVID came along and it all got a bit complicated, but. People only ragged on TCR when it did kind of lose that propping up, and it fell down. We saw that happen. Mustang Cup hasn't come under any massive scrutiny just yet, only because there's only been 2 rounds of it. It's pretty early to try to put a nail in something. At the same time, you would think that 11 cars at the Bend on the weekend isn't exactly what Ford envisaged it to be.
Of course not.
So there will come a time, if that continues, where the viability of it will come into question. But after 2 rounds, that's just too early to do that. So there's no double standard here. TCR got a lot of lead time. It got a lot of love through the media. The promotion of that series in 2019 through the media was excellent. So that helped. There were cars on the grid. The whole thing looked like it was going great. I guess we deep down understood that a lot of the entries weren't necessarily standing on their own 2 feet, and that at some point, if the funding sort of propping it up disappeared, that it would nosedive significantly. But yeah, there's certainly, like I say, no double standards here. The Mustang Cup has work to do, 11 cars in your second round. Not ideal, but it's only fair that they're given some time to try and get that together before this doesn't work.
I remember when Super Utes only had 8 cars. They are flying these days, so it can come back. So let's not judge it after 2 rounds. And like you say,
it needs to be better. There's absolutely no that. I'm sure, and again, there's no way that the guys from Ford Racing in Australia are sitting there saying, "Oh, that was great. How good. Let's rest on our laurels here." I'm sure there are alarm bells ringing over the fact there were only 11 cars. So don't think that that we don't have eyes on it, or we think that it's just going great. It's clearly not, but it's very early to be trying to really kick something into oblivion.
Look and sound good too, by the way. So that's one thing. All right. That'll about do us for this episode of Full Credit the Noise. Don't forget, you can find this show on all the socials at FCTTN Podcast, where you can read AVL's excellent work over at speedcafe.com, where they break all the big motorsport news first. Until next time, I've been former Legend. He's been AVL. This has been Full Credit the Noise, and we'll see some of you in the Discord.
See you there.
Full credit to the noise.